welcome. This is Maria from readfinebooks, and I don't have a purpose in life. I don't think I have my calling. I don't think I have ever known what I'm supposed to do with my life. I've just lived it. However, I always felt like there was something missing, like there was a calling for me out there. I just haven't found it. For the lucky of you who did, whoa, great, what are you doing here? But for the rest of us, I think this book may help a little. I've used it to find the next steps to take in order to find my purpose and live more meaningfully. These are the lessons I learned from The Art of Work, proven path to discovering what you are meant to do. The first lesson is we need to be living life to the fullest all of the time. I learned this because of the first story in the book, a story about a kid who got cancer and beat it, but he not only beat it, he then thrived at his life. In his 18 years of life, Garrett Rushmiller had completed a half Ironman, climbed Machu Picchu, and earned the rank of Eagle Scout. When he's not at school or working at the local climbing gym, he spent his free time volunteering with Wounded Warriors, a charity that supports and encourages war veterans. At the time of this writing, he's getting ready to graduate high school and more than anything would like a girlfriend. He had more meaningful experiences than anybody I know and helped more people than he would have had it not been for his illness. And that is key here. Had it not been for his illness, what would not have happened if Garrett had never gotten sick? That question is what I found most important in this story. Without an illness, we are never faced with our own mortality, so we never truly commit to our lives. We never truly experience it the way we should. So that is why we always have a nagging feeling that something is missing. Something is actually missing. We are not living to our fullest just because we don't think about our mortality enough. And it's not only about our mortality to think about. Any event we consider bad, it's just in reality an opportunity to learn. And if we look at everything from that perspective, we have everything to gain. Nothing is actually bad. Everything is an opportunity to grow. If we understand the first story and its moral, that everything can help us grow, we should then explore the nagging feeling of our empty lives or not good enough, that tells us that we do in fact have a calling and we haven't found it yet. This feeling is just very, very uncomfortable, but it is uncomfortable because it hides our fears. What if you don't know what you're supposed to do? What if you have no idea what your passion is? When we say we don't know what to do, what we're really doing is asking something deeper. What we want to know is this: can you promise me I won't fail? Some of you here don't know what your dream is, he said. In fact, most of you don't. But the truth is, he continued, you do know what your dream is, you're just afraid to admit it. The words in this chapter seem so familiar to me. I have said this in my head so many times. The actual change of perspective, fearing what happens if I don't act upon my calling, is what helped me more than anything else. The lesson number 3 I took from this book is, when in doubt, commit. What this supposes is we may not know our calling, but we do know we have a lot of interests. We should just start following one of them, see where it takes us, because everything we do with our whole heart changes us If we commit to things and become very, very good at whatever it is we are interested in, that experience in itself will help us later on. Commitment is necessary. It teaches us to exchange instant gratification for long-term reward and shows us that some change takes time. In learning this discipline of staying the course, our character grows. This is the payoff of patience. The joy of watching something grow that wouldn't have been had you not spend all those years sticking with it. The idea here is to just start doing something. Act upon your interests and commit to them as well as you can. Whatever you do is better than doing nothing. And in all this, another lesson is that you need help. Finding your purpose is difficult. First, you have to be aware it exists. You have to be aware of your life and your interests. And most of all, you have to ignore your fears and commit to something. And committing is very difficult in itself. But it's not just about commitment. It's also about perseverance. You can't find your passion if you don't push through pain. In the past, it took 10 years to master something. You were an apprentice for 7 years, and at least 3 more years you had to practice on your own. This kind of commitment is very rare these days. The apprenticeship part is also very rare. The idea here is having patience to grow is terribly hard. It may get easier if you surround yourself with persons that have already done it. Community is essential here. Some people will help you willingly, while others may contribute to your education on accident. But if you are wise, you can use it all. These people often come unexpectedly and can serve a vital role in our education. So let's look at how you don't miss these accidental apprenticeships. Another great lesson that I took from this book is that boredom is essential. I experienced this myself when I stopped watching Netflix. I was binging a lot of series and a lot of movies, and I wasn't doing anything, but the binging was an addiction that gave me the illusion I was doing something. I was thinking, I was being entertained all of the time. I hadn't had the opportunity to get bored. So when I did stop, I became interested in many more other things, and my life became a lot more fulfilling. What you should be paying attention to is what you do when you are bored. What are your actual interests? Another great idea from this book was that I was looking at finding my purpose all wrong. How did you know this was your calling? I just knew. This is what we hear from people who are too humble to admit how hard they worked or are uncomfortable with acknowledging how they got lucky. It sounds like how we often describe falling in love. You just know. The problem is that it isn't true. Most people don't know what their calling is. And as I did, they look at it as an aha moment that just happens, and it didn't happen to them. Well, the reality is finding your purpose is a journey, and it implies a whole lot of choices you make, of following every interest you have until one of that interest takes you to what you truly want to be doing. Take time to look back at all you've experienced and listen to what your life is saying. Invite mentors into your life to help you discern the call. This is the perfect opportunity to identify a thread, some common theme that ties everything together. As you begin to see the patterns, don't move too quickly. Just take one step at a time, trusting that opportunities will open at the right time. What we should also be aware of is that practice is painful. With pain comes growth. With learning new things, you expand your character and your experiences. That takes time and effort, and it's a blessing if you enjoy the process. However, enjoyment will fade over time as the practice gets more challenging, but without it being challenging, there is no growth. If there is no challenge, you will also get bored, and if something is too difficult, you will quit. That is why incremental progress is essential. It's easy to practice when the activity is something we enjoy, but what do you do when the excitement runs out and your strength disappears? What do you do when that first thrill of entering a new vocation begins to wane? Do you give up, or do you push through the pain and make your way to mastery? This is where experts differ from the rest of us. They recognize the resistance we all feel, but instead choose to see it as a sign of how close they are to their goal. Disciplining themselves, they deliberately lean into the most difficult parts when most people tend to quit. We have come to call these people geniuses and prodigies without ever fully understanding the work that it takes to reach such a status. But the truth is, what's in them just might be in all of us. That is why I think the key to practice is also liking it, even the difficult parts. Most people won't continue doing something they aren't passionate about, especially when it gets hard. Putting an activity through painful practice is a great way to determine your direction in life. If you can do something when it's not fun, even when you're exhausted and bored and want to give up, then it just might be your calling. Love, I think, is a much better criterion than lack of difficulty. If you can love what you do even when it hurts, then you may have more than a hobby. And if you've never pushed your talents this far before, if you've never tested your skills that much, then you probably haven't discovered your true vocation. Sometimes the only way to know the difference between a hobby and a calling is to put yourself through the crucible of painful practice. And we've come now to the last lesson I took from this book: become master of many things. I found this idea absolutely delightful because it encourages us to simply start doing stuff and committing to them. It kind of incorporates the whole book into just one idea. Start doing something, become very, very good at it, and maybe that is your calling, doing many things you are very good at. This concept is known as the portfolio life, and it says that you can be a business owner and a speaker and a writer and a coach, and you can be a master at all these things, and they are what you call your calling. The sum of these things, you help people in many ways, you incorporate everything into what you say is your calling. We are complicated creatures, full of many interests and assorted passions. What do we do with all of them? We are not what we do for a living, but our life is made up of what we do. So how do we take this complexity into account? And what if our calling will never pay the bills? A calling is more than a career. It's the purpose and direction of your life, which means that it doesn't just apply to what you do, it's who you are. I think that is refreshing. I think it can help a lot of us take the pressure off and just do everything we want to do without thinking so much of the outcome. We may perhaps understand our calling at the end of our lives when we look back and understand how many things we achieved. My favorite quote of all of this is, Don't search for your calling, he said. Explore, try new things, keep your feet moving. Something will grab you, it will call to you. It is no different than falling in love. You can sit on your couch and decide you are going to marry a certain girl. You fall in love after sharing experiences, joy, challenges, maybe even heartbreak, all of which could not have happened without leaving your couch, being involved, and meeting the one girl you can't stop thinking about. All in all, I had a lot to think about after reading this book. It wasn't perfect. I didn't like many of the stories, and I found others very inspiring. However, the ideas we have here helped me a lot in discovering what I need to be doing next to finding my purpose and understanding my purpose. I hope it will help you too. That's it. Thank you for watching.